Okay, so let's talk about groups. Before we dive too far into groups, I want to say a couple of things. One is that within the platform, all groups are inside of a group collection. So the collection is basically the bucket in which all of these individual groups are held. Each collection has its own lookup page, which is what you're looking at right now. The other thing that's important about group collections are that when you're creating a new group collection, it's how you decide like the search strategy basically for these groups and how they're going to be, whether they're going to be tied to locations or not effectively. So within the platform, we support virtual groups, which are not tied to any location. So these could be issue-based organizing, they could be interest-based organizing as well. We support groups that are tied to a single point location. So it could be a DC group versus a Sao Paulo group versus a Milan group. It's just a single point. People can search to find their closest group and we will show them whatever is closest, sort of regardless of where it actually is. And the other option is groups that are tied to shapes. So for example, this one is tied to Iowa's 1st congressional district. You could also tie it to parliamentary constituencies. You could tie it to basically any shapes that have meaning to you as an admin at an organization. So if you are, you know, let's say the Brazilian office and you have broken up Brazil into little shapes that mean something to your office and maybe don't tie to like electoral boundaries, we could upload that list of shapes and you could tie groups to those shapes if you wanted to. Or you could just do point location, or you could do issue-based organizing. Despite the fact that this one is tied to electoral shapes, I would actually normally suggest just doing point-based groups. So just saying, you know, this is Sao Paulo versus DC versus Milan, because for the most part, these shapes are kind of unnecessary unless you're doing, you know, unless you're planning on doing organizing against, you know, parliamentary members of parliament or, you know, representatives or something like that. The electoral boundaries are usually a little bit less useful than they might seem, versus letting people just sort of pick the group that they want to join that's closest to them. To answer the question on how uploading the shapes work, we will basically, if you have the shapes in KML or KMZ, which is the zipped version of the KML file, you can send it to us, we'll upload it on your behalf, and that will be visible and available to you on the platform. It'll only be available for you, so it doesn't become available for other folks, in case that's a concern. And then when you're setting up the group collection, you would basically choose that geographic set to say, you know, these are our Greenpeace Brazil shapes, so we want them tied to the local group collection that we're creating. It would be available in a dropdown, and you would choose that in the dropdown. Okay, so that's the collection. The other things that are special about the collection, as I mentioned, there's the lookup page that is specific to this collection. There's also this sort of, here's what groups are and why you might want to join one text that is custom for each collection, and usually written by admins. So you can convince people to join or create a group. And then the groups that you see here are all the groups in the collection, and we order them from largest to smallest. So people can also scroll through and sort of see that there are groups happening, even though generally speaking, they're gonna enter their information up here in order to find their group versus picking one from the list. So we're actually gonna start with creating a group because it's sort of the fastest flow to show. And then we'll talk about joining a group and sort of what group members can do, what group organizers can do, all of that. Okay. So let's start with creating a group. So again, this is tied to US electoral districts basically. So we're gonna have to go with a random city in the US. So I searched for Manchester, there's not a group happening near me. Because there's not a group nearby, usually that's 30 kilometers is the cutoff for what counts as nearby. I'll be told that there isn't a group and asked to create one. This page has information about what I as an organizer might need to do. It can have encouragement for me to join a group. It can have basically whatever information you want to give to prospective group organizers, because this is customizable by all of you. So anything you want your new organizers to know, you can stick it in here. They'll be able to review it before they actually go to set up a group. At this point, I will see a few things. So I'll be able to name my group. This has a default already set up at the collection level, but you can override, and by you, I mean the group organizer can override the default and name their group whatever they want to. There is a description of what this group is doing. This can be set as a default by admins, but overridden by a group organizer. I'll confirm the information that is tied to my account. So because I'm already logged in with an account, I'm just asked to confirm that this is all still correct. And then I will see this organizer question. So this is another question that's customized by staff members, and the idea is basically to get some answers that will help you decide if this person is going to be a good organizer. Obviously, a single question, it's hard to say. It's one response to one or two questions. It's a very short application process. But if they're unwilling to write anything, maybe they're not going to be a great group organizer. If they have some sort of really strange, weird, off-putting answer, maybe you don't want them to be an organizer. If they seem earnest and excited, then sure, they can become an organizer probably. So once they've completed this application, they can click to create. The group is then sent to moderation. So unlike with the default view for petitions and the default for events, groups are not live right away. They are not live until they have been approved by admins. So all groups that show up on that group lookup page have to be approved, and there's no way of sort of recruiting people to join a group before the group has actually been approved by admins. So this will go to moderation. It must be approved before anyone can join it. And you can, again, customize this text as well so that you can provide more details about like how long the wait they should expect, or whatever else you want to tell them as they're waiting to be either approved or denied as an organizer. Any questions so far? No? Okay. I realize I've been doing all of this with my staff account, even though all of this is also like the same flow for group organizers. Pretty much everything that we've shown so far is just the normal public facing flow. I am going to switch over to an organizer account. If you just give me 1 second, I'm going to log back in because actually joining a group is a little bit different if you're not an admin. Okay, so which one am I? I'm going to join this one first. So let's say that I live in Atlanta and I want to join the Atlanta group. This is sort of what I'll see initially. Because I am not a member of this group, I can't see much information. I can see the name of the group. I can see that they're organizing to reboot democracy and get involved in local national campaigns. I can see information about their members, their organizer, and then if they had upcoming events or if they were sponsoring petitions, those would show in this sidebar here, and I'd be able to see information about the event. I would be able to RSVP the event or sign the petition. Basically, what I can see here is just the quick overview. You are not yet a member, you're not seeing the forum, you're not seeing us discuss anything, but you're getting an overview of sort of what this group is doing. If that all sounds good, I can join. Again, I'm logged in, otherwise I would need to create an account. And at this point, I can choose notification settings. So how often do I want to be notified about something new happening in the group? Either every time, once a day, or not at all. Once I join, I am now a regular group member. So I now can post in this discussion forum and can see the forum. As a regular group member, the forum is the majority of what I'm able to do. So I'm able to start new threads. I'm able to join existing threads. I'm able to reply to other group members. But as a regular group organizer, I'm not able to host events on behalf of this group, and I'm not able to start campaigns on behalf of the group. I also don't have some other privileges that a group organizer would have. So as a member, the forum post is, for the most part, the main thing that I'm able to do. Let's say that I do want to get more involved and I want to be able to have those advanced permissions. I can apply to become an organizer of this group, a co-organizer of the group. And that application process is basically the same as the one for creating a new group. It's just a little bit shorter. So we don't need them to name the group, it's already named. We don't need them to describe the group, it already exists. But I will confirm my information and then I will respond to the organizer question. Again, any requests to be organizers must be moderated. So if I submit an organizer request, I am not granted organizer privileges right away. They have to be approved before I get the organizer privileges. Now that I've said organizer privileges approximately 10 times in the last 30 seconds, let's talk about what that actually means. Okay, so on this one, I am an organizer of this group, which means that I have these special privileges. So one of the first things that I can do is I can help with moderation. So if something inappropriate is happening in a group forum, I can flag it as inappropriate and send it off to moderation by staff members. So they are sort of your first line of defense for anything that shouldn't be happening in a forum. They'll be the ones who are in the forum most often and they're the ones who are keeping an eye out. Yes, so membership, there's not a moderation for members. Anyone can join the group automatically. The moderation is just for group organizers. That is a great question, Gabriel, and we will come back to it in a second. Yes, the answer is yes, you can post amongst multiple groups, and I'll show you how in a couple minutes. The other thing that the organizers can do, and this is an important one, is create events and petitions on behalf of the group itself. So these things that you're seeing over here, this event, this petition, these are sponsored by the local group. So they look like all the other events on the platform, except that they have this local group link because they're sponsored by the group. If any of you currently were to RSVP to this event, you would also see something a little bit different. So I tried to show this last night and then couldn't because, well, I'm logged in as an admin who is a member of this group. But if I RSVP to this event and I am not a member of the group, I'll be told that this is sponsored by a local group. I'll be asked to join that local group. And because this is a group event, I will also be added as a listening member of this group. So I'm not a full member, I can't post in the forum, but I can receive updates from the group itself because I've attended one of their events. If I don't want to receive updates, I can of course unsubscribe. Also in the pop-up that I see, which will tell me that I've been subscribed, I can immediately say I actually don't want to receive updates if I'm not interested in that. But these group events otherwise are exactly the same as the other events we've previously talked about. The only difference is that they are tied to the local group. They are sponsored by a group, and that people who RSVP will be shown that there is a group available for them to join. The other side of this is the group petitions. Much like with events, oh, let me just click the wrong thing. Much like with events, these petitions look the same as other petitions on the platform. The only difference is that they are also tied to the local group. If you sign the petition and you are not a member of the group, you'll see a pop-up that looks a lot like the Let's Join an Event pop-up, except it says that this is sponsored by a group. It has information about the group, and someone can click to get more information and join the group. So creating these events and hosting these events and creating these petitions are basically the main way that groups grow, is by having these things happening that anyone can join, and then making it clear to the people who are joining these things that they're sponsored by a group and they should join the group to get more involved. So I would strongly encourage you, if you do decide to roll out groups, to really provide a guidance to your organizers about how to do these events, how to do these petitions, and then encourage them along the way to make sure that they're continuing to have events and sponsor campaigns that affect their local area. The only other thing to mention here is that there's like a little bit of other things that they can do too as an organizer of a group. So they can update the name and description if needed. They can also override the welcome email that's sent to new members of the group. So we send an email that's from the group organizers after someone joins. They can customize that to have a more personalized message if they'd like. The other thing they can do is they can see other folks who have requested to be co-organizers of the group, and they can actually help you with moderation if you tell them about this tab and ask them to go there. The tab is always there, but most people don't find it. So if you actually want them to help you with moderation, you should tell them that that is a thing you're going to expect them to do. Basically, these are all of the requests to be co-organizers. As a group organizer, I can review their responses to that question that I've had set up at this collection level, and then I can approve or deny their requests to make them co-organizers of my group. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about some of the admin tools for group collections, and then we're pretty close to done, which, as people who are on the last one know, I tend to go longer than expected, so I'm happy that we're sort of within time this time. Okay, so within the admin tools, so again, I've switched from being a regular supporter who happens to be an organizer of this one group to being a staff member who has full admin privileges. As a staff member with full admin privileges, if I go back to this local group collection, this is the bucket in which all of these groups live, there's a few things that I can do that are specific for this collection. So the first one, and to answer Gabriel's question, is this broadcast post option, which basically allows an admin to send the same message to all groups in the collection. So if you have a bunch of groups and there's some sort of national action that you're planning as the NRO, You can say, hey, we have this plan for this national campaign. We need our groups involved. Here are the details. And you can just have it sent to all groups at once. This will be posted and it will look like a normal forum post. So it'll look as if you joined the group and typed it individually into their group page. It doesn't appear any different than the other forum posts, but it is a way of sort of getting information out to all of your groups at once without having to go page by page adding new posts. The other things are basically, I would describe them as sort of snapshot pages. So ways for you as an admin to get a really quick overview of what's happening in the collection. So basically the local groups, members, petitions, events, and threads are all snapshot pages. So if you're interested in a snapshot of what events are happening in this group, either upcoming or past, you can go to the events page and it will show you all of the events happening across all of the local groups. This example is maybe not so great since they're all happening in one group, but if the other groups that were created were having events, they would show up here and you would be able to see, all of the events happening across the collection, and then filter down if you wanted to check, which groups are maybe in need of events, which groups are having a lot of events. You can add filters to find that information. The same is true for petitions. We would show you all of the petitions that have been started by groups. The local groups will show you all of the groups that have been either approved or awaiting approval, depending. Members will show you any members of any groups, any organizers of all the groups, basically just overviews of what's happening in the collection for admins specifically who don't have time to go group by group looking for that information. So all of that information is available there. The other admin thing for groups is moderation, which is always an admin thing. The new groups moderation available here. Just like with every other type of moderation on the platform, we'll show you what information we have, and then you can either choose, in this case, to approve the group, which makes it live, or deny the group and it goes away. If either way, they'll get an email. So if you approve it, they'll get a great, your group has been approved, here are the next steps. You can customize that in settings content. If you decide to deny the group, they'll get this email. You can customize the wrapper of this email in settings content as well. And then we'll ask you to provide a reason for why it's being denied. Usually this is boilerplate text that just says, we're not looking for a group in your area versus you seem really weird and we don't want you running this group. It's of course up to you what type of messages you want to send. So that's all in there. The other thing I want to make very clear about moderation for groups specifically is that so events and petitions that are sponsored by the group specifically do not need to be moderated. So they're basically the only thing on the platform that is created by supporters but does not require moderation. So because those group events and petitions are created by already approved group organizers, people who you've already decided can be trusted with advanced permissions, their content does not need to be approved. It will be automatically moderated to good. It will automatically be visible. It'll automatically show up on any lookup pages. You can then decrease the moderation status if needed or increase it if you want to. But by default, it will not show up in this moderation queue. It'll just be live automatically. However, if I as a group organizer create a petition outside of my group, so I just go and click the start a campaign button in the header and it's not tied to the group, I'll still need to be moderated because I'm creating something outside of my function as a group organizer. So I just wanted to make that clear that it's a little bit different than most other things on the platform. Okay, in the last couple of minutes, I want to mention this page, which is /local. This page is basically a way of allowing people to find what's happening near them, whether it be events or groups. So it'll show, this is sort of like a weirdly spaced map, given that there's a whole lot of empty space, and then New Zealand. But it'll show what's happening on the platform. If someone searches for their location, we'll show them what's happening near them. So any events that are happening, any groups, they can filter down if they're only interested in groups. I thought there was one nearby, but there's not. So they can filter down based on what they're interested in and sort of find ways to get involved. There's also the ability to add various filters depending on what you've set up. So if you have different event types created on the platform and people are interested in like phone banks specifically, or let's try canvases specifically. Okay, neither of those apparently exist yet. They can find that type of event if there is an event that matches that. You can also add labels, which I think that the event that I created may have expired yesterday, which is why nothing is showing up. But you can add these labels so that people can find what they're looking for. Yeah, nothing is happening in Europe, Asia, or Africa, or South America even, despite my creating like Buenos Aires type things. I keep not moderating them, so nothing's happening there. But yeah, normally, hopefully, it would zoom in a bit more, ideally, on your country. And you'd be able to, your supporters would be able to find things happening near them. The one big caveat on this page for a bunch of you on this call is that this map is built with mapbox, which is not currently one of our authorized subprocessors for GDPR. So that means if you, as a European NRO, go to /local, you will not see anything because it requires a mapbox integration. This is not the end of the world. All you have to do is add a mapbox integration from settings, integrations. You'll see mapbox here, and you'll be able to create a mapbox account and then add a code which will make that page available again. I can't give legal advice on GDPR, of course. This is not legal advice. The reason that they're not included in our DPA is not because they're like, you know, putting data on billboards or something. It was, I think, around data retention that they expire their data a little bit longer than we do. So we weren't able to include them under our DPA because those terms were a little bit different. You should, of course, review their DPA, review their security if you are subject to GDPR to make sure that everything is the way it should be. If you decide that it is, you can then enable a mapbox integration to have the /local page show up. For those of you not based in the EU, you should already have access to this page. So generally speaking, you'd probably use the sidebar a bit more for that because it'll show up in the sidebar as, oh, I think my computer just froze. There we go. Okay. So you can see that there's an event on top of a group over here, or a group on top of an event. So we try to like put them off a little bit so that you can see there are multiple things happening and choose the one that you want to see. But otherwise, all of that would show up in this sidebar as well for people to scroll through. And you can also filter down. So let's say you are specifically interested in groups, you can see the groups that are happening.
Sub question number 2. This is only for events and local groups. It doesn't show efforts or petitions or local campaigns. It's just for events.
That is a great question. Yes. So currently it's just events and local groups. However, our grand plan is to also incorporate petitions, just generally petitions, and specifically effort petitions as well.